Demarcus Robinson taking a lot of catches and a lot of issues with him off campus, hopefully to the NFL for him. We bring in David Waters, SEC Breakdown, so you can join the two of us along with Mike LaValle and Chad Neepling. We pour out tons of content on Twitter and Facebook. Join us there. We're breaking down Florida at wide receiver. David and Antonio Callaway hopefully back in the fold. You got Brandon Powell. Those are the two proven commodities, big play guys. Obviously, Callaway also doing it in the return game as well. Had the two huge games against Georgia and LSU, and that's probably when the offense hit its peak. And by no coincidence, Callaway had his 200-yard games there. But they're the two guys that we know about.
Right, and Antonio Callaway had basically the game-winning touchdown against Tennessee on a 4th and 14. It's going to be very interesting to see how this wide receiver rotation comes out. You mentioned Antonio Callaway, Brandon Powell are basically the two returning guys that you can count on. Under Will Grier in the first half of the season, Callaway, Demarcus Robinson, Brandon Powell, the trio was looking really good. When Treon Harris stepped on, it was really only Callaway who was still the only receiver who could still do anything with Treon Harris at quarterback. I think his suspension was probably I hate to say a good thing because the quarterbacks could have used a repertoire with him, but it also helped some of the other receivers, a lot of early enrollees as freshmen with Freddie Swain, Hammond, Dre Massey come in from junior college. It was able to get them on the field a little bit more and get some more experience, but the group took some steps forward in developing overall depth at the position. And with that, with them being on the field a lot in the spring, a handful of players have emerged as potentially reliable contributors. So definitely more than what Florida had a year ago. I think Jim McElwain has recruited the wide receiver position very, very good. He's getting the numbers there, and those numbers and potential playmakers could make this wide receiver group in Jim McElwain year 2 a whole different looking group.
Dave, we talked about Ahmad Fullwood before we came on. Chris Thompson. These are names that it seems like they've had 8-year careers at Florida. We've heard about them, and they've just kind of been invisible, but they were such highly touted recruits coming on. We expected so much of a few of these guys. Can you run down the guys that now it's make or break, and this passing game really needs somebody to step up?
Right. We're probably looking at Ahmad Fullwood trying to be the number 2 on opposite of Callaway. He's a big, tall receiver that just for whatever reason it cannot click for him in Gainesville. I really thought a turning point would have been in Will Muschamp's last game. He didn't coach it, but the bowl game in Will Muschamp's last season would have been 2014. It was, he took Ahmad Fullwood for a big guy. I mean, he's 6'4", 211, took a screen pass 80 yards for a touchdown. And I was like, you know what, maybe that's the light he needs to click and something happened the very next year. We still didn't see it last year. C.J. Wharton looked very good at times this past spring. If he can become assistant, he can become a very good number 2. We saw him catch a bomb from Treon Harris in the SEC championship game against Alabama. Somehow came up with that ball. But he's got to be more consistent. He's got the tools. He really has the tools, but can he really, really put it together? That's another question. Chris Thompson, right out of Gainesville, he's a burner, a speedster, a guy who could take a top off of a defense. But as we've seen, he's just hasn't been able to see the field. A couple plays here and there, but these guys, if they don't want to be overtaken by all these freshmen that Jim McElwain's coming in with already, a repertoire of going through a spring and being playmakers themselves, they're going to get passed up. So Fullwood, Wharton, Thompson, they better be on the lookout, and they better start doing something if this Florida offense wants to take a big step, and if they also want to try and maybe get in the NFL.
And when we talk invisible for Thompson, that's 9 catches in 3 years. For Fullwood, he had 17 catches as a freshman. There's a little bit of life there, then 12, then 6 last year, and really nondescript catches that didn't mean a whole lot in most of those games last year. Now you got a recruiting class that really hauled in some interesting prospects here, and specifically Tyrie Cleveland out of Texas, Josh Hammond, 16th rated kid, Cleveland, a top 5 guy, and there's about 4 guys that are rated that could jump into the mix.
Yeah, Mark, you mentioned Tyrie Cleveland. He's kind of the receiver fans have been most excited about since Percy Harvin. Andre DeBose could have fit that mold, but he was kind of a disappointment when people tried to label him the next Percy Harvin at Florida. I don't think people are trying to compare Cleveland to Percy, but so as far as excitement goes, I think that's where that lays. He's going to have the chance to be a go-to guy from day one. I think Jim McElwain's going to try and get out of him what maybe he tried to get out of Antonio Callaway last year. It will be hard to match that production because Callaway numbers-wise was one of the best freshmen in Florida history. If Florida gets anywhere close to that from Cleveland, that means this offense is rolling and have very good success opposite of Callaway on the other side of the field. He's got this length, he's got athleticism, his size and his speed together make it translate. His game will translate well to the college level. It's as long as he's ready there and ready to start working. He will be a contributor for Florida in 2016. And the guy who probably got him here was, from here in Jacksonville, Rick Wells, kind of overlooked. Him and Cleveland were childhood friends here in Jacksonville. Wells got him. They were still friends, and it sounds like through everything we've known, got him as got him to Gainesville and got him a commitment for Florida. Wells is big, strong, physical receiver, sneaky speed, very good athleticism. But the two guys that we saw in the spring, which are Josh Hammond and Freddie Swain, those guys made some plays. Freddie Swain probably has some of the best hands I've seen for a Florida receiver, freshman wise. He can just go up and snag the ball. It goes up, gets it, and tries to make plays afterwards. And another newcomer, we'll go to junior college route, Dre Massey. Is going to be a fight in the slot between him and Brandon Powell. But he'll have to battle. Don't get me wrong, but Massey did good enough this spring that he's definitely will be in the rotation. How much him and Powell will fight over that slot will be, kind of interesting to see because Powell always fights some injuries. It kind of seems, but Massey he has the chance to be another explosive player for the receiver group, and Florida will need to try to get the ball to him. But I would love to see as a rotation somehow, some way get Cleveland, Powell, Massey, and Callaway, all four of those guys on the field at the same time. That could spell some troubles for some SEC defenses.
Florida limped to the SEC championship game last year offensively. A few things played into it. Obviously, the suspension of Will Grier, nondescript running game, couldn't run the football. We talked about that earlier. And they got the big wins out of the way that they had to win in the division, Tennessee and Georgia, but they limped down the stretch. Probably not going to be able to get away with that kind of production offensively down the stretch and with similar results this year. Join David and I on SEC Breakdown along with Chad Niefling and Mike LaValle. SEC Breakdown, Twitter and Facebook, tons of content there. Dave, thanks so much for jumping on here with Florida's wideouts.
Thanks, Mark.